my name is Kirsten and welcome to TOEFL Land. Today I'd like to talk to you about traps in the TOEFL listening section. And I'm calling this part 1 because as we know in TOEFL, there are a lot of traps. But when you know how these traps work, when you study the pattern, you will see the same traps in a lot of different TOEFL questions, not only on the listening section, but also on the reading section. So why is it important to know about traps? Well, when you can see them, when you can identify them, you're less likely to fall into them. You're less likely to select the incorrect choice, and you're more likely to select the correct answer choice in a quicker amount of time, okay? So I want to talk about one trap with you today in the listening section, and I'm going to focus on a conversation, okay? And in future videos, I'll focus on different traps and different aspects of the listening section, but for now, we'll focus on the conversation. And first, I want to review the different question types on the listening section. So typically, when we listen to a conversation, it's between a man and a woman. And one of the first questions we will get is called the purpose question. It sounds like this. Why does the man go see the professor? Okay, that's asking about the man's purpose. The main idea question asks us, what are they mainly discussing? What are the man and woman mainly talking about? The fact detail question will ask us about some detail that we heard in the conversation. The rhetorical function question, or some people like to call it the speaker's purpose or author's purpose question, this will ask about why someone says something. So for example, why does the man say this? Why does the woman mention this? It could also ask about the organization of the conversation. So how is this conversation organized? Do they explain steps in a process? Does the woman give instructions of exactly what to do? Or do they start by maybe disagreeing with each other and then later on coming into agreement with each other? So those are all different organizations of the conversation. The inference question will ask us to draw a logical conclusion based on the information that we have heard. So for example, it might sound like, what does the man imply? What does the woman suggest? What can be inferred about the man's project? Or, what will the man probably do next? Okay, those are all inference questions. The speaker's attitude question will show up in the listening section, and it sounds like this. What's the woman's attitude about the project? What's the man's attitude toward the class? So it's asking about really how someone is feeling about a certain thing, okay? The sequence question will ask us to put events or what we heard in a certain order. So for example, if the woman gives instructions to the man, what he must do first, second, third, fourth, this question might ask us to put events in that order. And then the chart question will ask us usually to determine whether a statement is true or false. The sequence and the chart questions are a little more rare on TOEFL. We haven't been seeing a whole lot of them these days, but just, they do exist, and they might always bring them back. TOEFL is renowned for bringing old questions back in to the current exam. Okay, so let's talk about traps. the general overview for traps, okay? And this is very general. We've got a not mentioned trap, okay? Maybe there's an answer choice where this answer choice was not mentioned at all in the conversation. Didn't come up. We've got the false statement trap. And this one is deceptive because it only takes one word or one letter to make the statement incorrect. So you have to read very carefully. We also have the trap where part of it is true, right? Maybe the first part is true and the second part is false, okay? So I call this trap partly true, partly false. So it has some of the information correct and the rest of it is either incorrect or incomplete. Another trap, which students are very familiar with, is the too extreme trap, right? So words like only, always, must are great signal words for that, but it can also show up in other more extreme ways. And then the other trap to be aware of, just generally speaking, is when it's a true statement, but it doesn't answer the question, okay? So let's say, for example, you have a statement which mentions something about the woman. The woman is disappointed that the man missed the beginning part of class because he missed a lot of important information. And she's disappointed in him for doing that or something. But the question says, and that's true, but the question says, why does the man go visit the professor? She shows disappointment at him. Well, that doesn't really answer the question, does it? It's true, but it doesn't answer the question, okay? So in general, those are some traps to look out for. Now, I want to specifically focus here on the purpose question and a very common trap that students fall into with the purpose question. And that is that usually we expect to hear the purpose right in the beginning of the conversation. But sometimes the purpose will come later. Sometimes the student starts by discussing something else, and then later on, we understand the student's real purpose for going. Okay, so let's take this example of a conversation. We have a man, he's a student in this woman's class, and the first thing he does is come in and say, "Excuse me, professor, I am so sorry that I have been late for the last 4 classes in a row. I have been busy working at a new job that I just got, and I haven't figured out how to arrive at the proper time and be on time for class." She says that she's disappointed that he couldn't attend class on time and that it's really important that he attend because you miss a lot of important information in the very beginning of class. And he explains that he has a friend that is taking notes for him, and so he always connects with his friend after class to make sure that he hasn't missed any of the important information. Then he says, "I'm applying to grad school." And the woman says, "Oh, congratulations! What school are you applying to?" "Oh, I'm applying to such and such a school on the west coast of the United States." "Well, that's wonderful." Okay. Then he says, what I would like to ask you is, okay, as soon as you hear that, whoa, this is his purpose. What I would really like to ask you is, would you be able to write a letter of recommendation for me? So what's the man's purpose? The man's purpose is to ask his professor for a letter of recommendation. Okay? But the trap in this question might be the man's purpose is to apologize to the professor. Or the man's purpose is to explain that his friend is able to take notes for him. Or the man's purpose is to announce that he is going to grad school and that he is inviting her to his celebration party. Party, not mentioned, okay? The purpose is he really wants to ask her if she will write a letter of recommendation, okay? And her response is, of course, I will write a letter for you. However, I need some things from you. I need a resume, and I would like to ask you some more detailed questions about your goals in graduate school and your goals in your career. That will give me a better understanding of who you are and also how I should go about writing your letter of recommendation. Please come by my office tomorrow so we can discuss this further, and bring your transcript so I can see what courses you've taken. And please don't forget to mention any awards or honors that you have won so that I can be sure to really be comprehensive in my letter of recommendation for you. Okay, so trap. The trap in the purpose question is they will pull in other things that aren't the real purpose, okay? So what I want you to watch out for is really be listening for what's the real intention of the student. Sometimes the student walks in and says, "Hi, professor, I want to talk to you today about the lecture. I didn't understand it." Okay, great. So we know the purpose is he didn't understand the lecture. He wants more help. The student is seeking more help. That's his purpose. But in this situation, he starts with an apology. But that's not really why he's in that office. We had to listen a little bit more until about halfway in the conversation he finally says, "What I'd really like to ask you is," boom, for a letter of recommendation. Okay? So, in this purpose question, be aware that the trap answer choice might pull a true statement from somewhere else in the conversation that is not the true purpose of the student. Be aware of it. Watch out for it. Don't fall into this trap. Happy TOEFL studies.